Okay, today we are going, and I'm just going to take a sip of this drink. I knew this was going to happen when I was talking a lot. Uh, for one day filming so many reviews, or one night. So today we are going to be reviewing Babylon, which was kind of one of those just kind of sneak in films randomly, where they don't really say anything about it, and then all of a sudden you're just seeing a trailer for it, which I think is kind of a smart marketing tool now. Ever since, I think it was kind of the same with, uh, oh God, The Last Duel, where it was just kind of like randomly that week, it was just like all of a sudden, just boom, big marketing push. Now I know it got a lot of backlash because the director said this film should be seen in theaters, which I agreed with, and when I went, my theater was empty, but I tend to go to the late show, and I just think with the last couple of years of films, it's been hard because so many have been delayed, right? To the point where you're kind of putting it in the theater at maybe it's just a time where it's competing with like bigger films. I feel like that's kind of the situation, which is unfortunate because some of these other films that come out that kind of get missed or scrolled over completely are actually really good films, and it sucks because I mean you could keep postponing and hoping that you're putting it at a time where there's not really much. Uh, which I feel is going to be kind of hard to do for the next couple of years. So I feel like some films would have been delayed till almost like 2025, 2026 if that was the case, which would have kind of put a damper, I think, on the filmmaker as well. Which, yeah, it just sucks for certain filmmakers that are good filmmakers that make great movies, and they just kind of get overshadowed by the bigger titles. Now, I'm not saying these bigger titles don't have good directors and aren't good movies. I'm just saying I think some of them that could have done better in the box office end up flopping due to the fact that everybody just wants to see, uh, the biggest title. You know what I mean? Um, and yeah, it's gotta sting a little bit for the directors of the movies that could have made it bigger had they been able to slot themselves in at a time where there wasn't much in theaters, maybe, and they would have done better in the theater, is what I'm trying to say. But it just is what it is in certain times. But this film, I feel like, probably has enough star power in it where it's going to do good enough to probably get another big film with all of these names in it anyway, because we have Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Jean Smart, Olivia Wilde, Diego Calva, who I don't think I've ever seen in another film, to be completely honest. And then we had some like really crazy guest appearances. Who was like one of the crazier ones? Oh, Eric Roberts was in the film. Um, Roy Scovel was in the film as well. There were other ones too. Can't tell me some of these. Oh, Samara Weaving was even in it? Holy crap. Jeff Garlin? Wow, there was a lot of crazy guest appearances in this film, let me just say that much. Yeah, Frederick Kohler was in the film. There was another big one that surprised me because I didn't really know much about this film other than, you know, kind of like it seemed like a crazy party movie. But yeah, there was a lot of. Oh, Ethan Suplee was also in the film. And Tobey Maguire. That was the one that shocked me the most. Now, I don't think there was really any other real big guest appearances, but the cast list just keeps going, man. Like it just keeps going. So this is a this is a film about filmmakers and actors. And I think the party scene at the very beginning of the movie probably made up the first like 30 minutes. even the build up to the party scene was just wild, where it starts out with just Diego and I guess, oh yeah, the truck driver, CJ Curious, thinks that he's coming to pick up horses, but it ends up being an elephant. And let me just say, that was no easy feat for them to get it up that mountain to the house to have the party. And I guess it was Jack Conrad's party, and Nellie Leroy is going there. But at that point, she hasn't even made any sort of a name for herself. Um, so yeah, I'm trying to remember what character Olivia Wilde even played. It must have been one of Conrad's wives, I think. Maybe it was his first wife. So yeah, it was, because I remember her saying, "Stop speaking Italian in the car," and he'll speak English for like a couple words and then start speaking Italian again. It's just absolutely hilarious. And then they end up filing for divorce, and he had many wives over the years of his career. And he clearly had a drinking problem, because that's basically how he got through his acting career. But he was I guess, kind of like the saving grace of most of these films throughout. And the party scene was crazy. And uh, when Manny and Nellie first meet, he immediately falls in love with her. Um, so eventually she does end up, because she says at the party, you either are an actor or you aren't. You either have it or you don't, sort of thing. And she says, I have it. So uh, unfortunately, the original actress that they were going to get for this film ends up dying. So um, it was just kind of funny. They get her out the door by distracting people with the elephant, even though it wasn't supposed to be brought into the party till a certain part. And then they decide to take Nellie as the new girl in the film, and find out that she is actually a phenomenal actress, and they use her in a lot of big Hollywood films. And um, oh god, there were two battling production companies in this film, or in this movie. So basically, it's about filmmakers making films, and actors kind of like losing their touch. So we're coming out of the silent film era into the talking film era, right? So talking films are becoming bigger. So we start out in like I think it was the late 1920s when we started out, and then we kind of move into the 1930s and almost get to 1940 before all of the events of this film unfold. Okay, so I'm just going to type in film companies battling in Babylon. Right, it was Paramount Pictures and C2 Motion Group. Or was that? Hmm. Let me just see. I'm going to see who. Maybe Variety will say something about who was actually battling. Okay, I can't quite remember. Anyway, that was basically the premise of this film, right? Was the two companies battling at the end, and then obviously Conrad kind of losing the battle here as these new up and coming actors were starting. Uh, and Nellie had a serious gambling problem and always ended up owing money. And Manny was really trying to get her career to take off, but she just kind of seemed to ruin his life at every turn, even after he had made it big and had become part of the other production company. Um, and he almost gets himself killed near the end of the film when they're trying to give fake money to the guys that Nellie owes money to, which was Tobey Maguire and his security guard, which are way back here. So who did Tobey Maguire play? Was that Ryan Reynolds? No. Okay. a second there. I was like, holy shit, Ryan Reynolds was in this film? Okay, so James McKay and Wilson. So when they go to James McKay and Wilson, they obviously have fake money. And the guy who played the Count was the one who came up with the like $85,000 that she owed them. And they take them into like the underground of Hollywood. And it gets dark in that part of the film, let me tell you. Because this guy thinks that all these people in the underground are going to be the next big thing in Hollywood, which turned out not to be at all. Thank God, because that would have been super weird. Just whatever was going on down there can stay down there. Oh my God, man! Like that was just, I would have been frightened even walking down to the, like, I don't know how many floors they had. They're like, oh, just one more floor, just one more floor. And I'm like, guys, get the heck out of there. And then when they found out that they were giving them fake money, they ended up shooting at them. And I kind of had a feeling that it was going to catch up with her eventually, because she gets to the point where they're coming to kill her and they have to try to get out of the States and to Mexico. And three of the people get shot, and obviously when Nellie goes into the darkness that she's probably going to get assassinated too. I was like, oh no, why would you get out of the car in that scene? She would have been shot anyway, but it's kind of more eerie to have her get out of the car and just walk down the road into the darkness, knowing that somebody's there to kill her. Like, it's just a very eerie way they set up that scene, and smart of them to do it that way, actually, because it just makes you know that she's dead. Um, and then what was it? So they let Manny go. So it seems that Manny, years later, I think it was like somewhere in the 1950s, when he finally returns to Hollywood and tells his son that this was or no, I think it was the security guard. He's talking to the security guard and saying that he used to work for that company. And then he decides to go to the theater one last time and see a film. And all of the stuff that had, I guess, happened within his life that would have been on the big screen sort of thing were now in a motion picture. And all the lines that Conrad had said to him and so on and so forth were in this film, kind of bringing back to life what had happened to him, basically. And he's just sitting in the theater crying while people are cheering and clapping. Which would be unfortunate, because he worked really hard to become what he was. Because when he started out in the film, he was just I guess, kind of a butler sort of thing, butler slash security kind of deal. And I know the one guy that he was working with tried to convince him at one point to come over to the other company, and I don't think he left at that point because he had such a good relationship with Conrad that it didn't really matter at that point. And Conrad was really hitting it big at that point in time, and he knew all the big Hollywood stars and so on and so forth. So it didn't matter for Manny to even leave. And I guess if he was stuck around with Conrad, he got to be closer with Nellie anyway. And I don't really think Nellie saw him in the same light. And eventually she kind of goes on her own path and uses her dad as her manager. And there's a whole other scene where they decide to fight a snake, which is a horrible idea. And she ends up getting bit by the snake, and then this other girl has to suck the venom out, which, folks, that doesn't actually work. That's just a Hollywood trick that they use. You can't actually suck the venom out of the person. So if you get bit by a snake, hopefully you have enough time to make it to a hospital, because you are not going to live otherwise. You need anti-venom. Let's just say that much. But it was it was a cool scene anyway. And I think does her dad die in that scene? Oh my God, I can't even remember. Just, this movie was just wild from beginning to end. And then that doesn't work out, because I think that's when she starts really developing the gambling problem and owing a lot of money to a lot of powerful people. And then we all know how that results. And Conrad kind of tries to hang on to what he had earlier on in his career. And unfortunately, that just doesn't work. And then they try to save Nellie's career, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff in the one scene with the sound guy and the director and everybody else trying to just make it like perfect. And it's just such a mess, that whole scene, where they're like, just don't miss your mark, blah 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 blah. It's like, oh my God, man, just get on with the film. And then the one guy ends up dying in the camera box where he's shooting. So I don't even think they ended up getting the shot after all those hours and making it perfect. So it's like, oh my God, man. Just the amount of people that died in this film due to the fact that it was just so, like, the amount of stress they put on themselves was just absolutely wild. So yeah, I guess making films in those days, you really had to compete hard in order to even make your film noticed. Because oh my God, man, it was just crazy the stuff that happens in this film. But also, it was cool to see a movie made about this from where film basically started to the point we're at today. It was just cool to see, and I think this needs to be seen on the big screen. Hopefully, by the time this comes out, everybody has that wanted to has seen it on the big screen. Because I don't really know. This review is going to be a while before it gets out there. But anyhow, um, what else can I really say about this film? Oh yeah, unfortunately, at the end, Conrad does end up killing himself because he knows he's met the end of his. I guess he's kind of come to terms that he's at the end of his career. And unfortunately, it just saddens him to the point where he thinks that that's the only way out. I kind of had a feeling when he handed the kid a stack of money and says it's all up to you now, and I was like, oh no, he's gonna go. He's gonna go end his life, and oh, it just sucks that people think that that is the only way to out. Um, he probably could have honestly went and worked with Manny at that point in time, maybe. But I guess that was kind of near the closing of the film where everything is going down and Manny and Nellie are trying to escape um, from the States and they're about to get married. And yeah, they had all these big dreams and then they just got crushed. But when Manny comes back to the States, he has a family. So now I'm not really sure whether somebody would have been looking for him or not because the guy that killed him said, don't ever come back here. So I think it was kind of maybe a risk for him to even go back to the States, but I mean, it is what it is. I guess you can't be afraid your entire life, right? And I guess it's probably been about 12, 13 years between times that he went, so I guess it's not really that bad after all. Um, so yeah, I this film was really good and had a very big cast, and had some great storylines and character development in it, obviously, and just really cool, wild scenes. And I think the party scene took them a long time to. Uh, it took them a long time to film. I know that much, based on what Margot Robbie had said about it. So, yeah, it just seems like I guess they were. It felt like they were actually partying during that entire scene, just shooting it. So, sounds like this movie was a lot of fun to make, and I think it was kind of one of those films that needed to be made. Yeah, so I would say go see this on the big screen or when it comes out on the streaming service. Definitely give it a watch. I feel like it is a film that needs to be watched, and it's a family movie, like a kind of like a sit down family movie. I mean, it does have some darker themes to it, but I feel like you could probably sit down and watch this with yeah, just a family night, popcorn, snacks, kind of thing. And I did give this movie an 8 out of 10 as my score. Uh, yeah, and I will see you guys in the next review. Bye bye for now.